And then Vandalia was always a wonderful little town. They had a great school there for years and years. It was always interesting going to high school here to see what new kids were going to show up on first day of school for high school, because you might have 2 or 3 from Vandalia, you might have 2 or 3 from Snake Creek. You just never knew, you know. So
how were the relations with the other communities such as Saco and Dodson?
oh, there was that, you know, the kids from here who now get along with Saco and Whitewater, you know, extremely well. And of course now they play basketball with them. So, but no, it was a bitter rivalry when I was growing up. Absolutely bitter. And I said for years, even after I moved back in '95, that the kids could get along with the co-op or even the merger of the 2 schools. It's the parents that have the problem with it. Because no, I can recall as a kid, the thing that was almost humorous was Saco boys would date Hinsdale girls. Nobody was bothered with that. Hinsdale boys would date Saco girls. Nobody was bothered with that. But Hinsdale boys and Saco boys being friends, forget it. And Whitewater was the same way. When I was in school, Whitewater had an absolutely awful basketball team. I mean, it was pitiful. Dodson was the powerhouse of the conference. And my senior year, I think we took second in the conference or something like that, and played Dodson for the tournament championship, and beat them like 44-33 or something, which is a relatively low-scoring game, and that really had the Dodson folks upset because we wouldn't run and gun like they wanted to do. The boys played a really good defensive game. So, in fact, there's a banner hanging in the gym now for the 64 class or 64 team that won the divisional or district tournament. So,
Yeah, I've heard a couple stories. It sounds like the basketball games could be a little rougher back in the day.
well, they could be. I had been gone for so many years that I never developed any basketball skills. And so I played my freshman year, I think played a little, and then after that, when I came back again, it just, you know, don't bother because you can't, you know, you don't have any skills. So, but Lauren Albus, I always referred to him as having elbows like broomsticks. And when he got that ball and those elbows went out, people knew better than to stay close to him. So, but it was it's a different approach in those days. They didn't take it as serious, didn't know all the technical stuff as far as conditioning and injuries, and it's a completely different world as far as along those lines nowadays.
Safety is a much bigger issue.
Yeah.
Some of the rules have changed a little bit too, with like you don't jump the ball every quarter.
Yeah.
When we play belly bump, sometimes some of those rules kick my butt.
And then we still had football when I was in school. Played my freshman year when I went to school here, and then when I came back, we played my senior year, and that was the last year that Hinsdale had football. But that was some brutal stuff, So.
Where did they play it over on the track field? Or?
Yeah, well, the track field didn't exist as it is now. There was no running track. It was basically just a big old dirt field, and they'd go out and they had a chalk machine and they'd mark off the field, and by the time the game was over, you couldn't tell where any of the chalk marks were, because it was not, there might have been a little prairie grass here and there, but it was basically just an old dirt field. I remember my freshman year, we went to Malta to play Malta on like a Friday night, and it was first thing, everybody's walking around looking up at the lights, and then the next thing, everybody's walking around looking down at the grass. That's the only recollection I have to the game. I'm sure we got severely pounded, but just the lights in the grass, something we hadn't experienced before.
A little high class, huh?
And we had, freshman year and then my senior year as well, the equipment was rather aged. And so it was sometimes funny to be, getting ready, getting dressed. What was fine with us, because, they were nice, they were clean anyway. Pants, and they're kind of a canvas material. Then you get up there to Malta and here they've got these slick satin looking high dollar things, and we're going, wow.
So was there still a doctor in town when you were here, or did you have to go to Glasgow?
Well, when I was a little kid, Doctor Cockrells was in building behind the bank. In fact, I got treated there one time. I was just a toddler, and I was at my grandmother's. My grandmother lived where Jim and Doris live. So in the corner of the living room was this big iron grate furnace. Somewhere or another, somebody gave it to me, or I found it, or whatever, was this locomotive, toy locomotive. And the grate on the furnace was just a bunch of squares. So you had these bars running this way, bars running this way. But I discovered that it really sounded clickety-clackety if you ran it over those things. Well, apparently there was a slight gas leak or something, and my running that train over there caused a sudden flash of flame. Not severely burned, but I got my legs burned, and so they had to take me up to see old Doc Cockrells. And then, I don't know if it's still set up, but they had his office set up down at the Pioneer Museum.
I think they're moving it. They have an annex now that they just got built, so I think he's going to have even a bigger setup now.
Oh, cool.
I think they're got it set up to where it's going to be like the 1930s Glasgow downtown, so they're going to have little buildings and stuff, I think.
Oh.
Kind of excited to see that. I was just down there last week, and they have a lot of resources. It's amazing what people have kept over the years.
Well, it's, there's been a lot of things, and I've heard people tell the story of, oh yeah, I had this, but I gave it to the museum. So yeah, they could probably expand a number of times from what I've heard. But.
Yeah, one of the things that I didn't realize they had, because I knew that they had Sid Simonson's dad's journals for a while. And there was a little bit of confusion. I went to talk to them. They had it for a while, and then they gave them back. Bear had tried to convince him to let him keep them, but he's forgotten about it. But Gene says that they're downstairs in their house.
Oh.
But they got a couple of those pages photocopied in a display of some medals that his dad had dug up that were like 1820, like big silver coin medal things.
I remember hearing stories about that. Yeah, they were commemorative deals that the cavalry had, and they apparently lost, misplaced, whatever, when they camped out at Miles Crossing. So
yeah, because I think they said that he dug them up somehow. I don't know how you would find those, but that's pretty impressive that he did.
When you knew the history, and knew that there were campsites on both sides of the crossing, it wouldn't take a rocket scientist to figure, well, let's just kind of look around. If you saw an area that looked like it might be a little disturbed, you know, let's dig it up, see what we can find.
That's true.
You know,
Just kind of crazy that there was that history up here.
over in front of the area, closer to the street, where the bus barn is now, used to be the Chester Hotel, where the rest of the town took their garbage out to the dump out south of town. Chester Hotel just dumped theirs over the coulee. So that was always an interesting experience to go digging through that and see what you could find. Because back when I was a kid, long neck beer bottles, pop bottles, all had a redemption value. You know, these people today think they've got a new deal going on with that. Well, that's just old hat. But you know, you could go out and collect pop bottles and come in and get 50 cents, 60 cents. That bought a lot of candy in those days. You know, so that was a big deal.
Yeah, I miss the glass bottles. I'm glad they're kind of coming back with them. It's kind of nice to have something a little bit sturdier.
Well, the one thing that I still kind of get amazed, I like my Coke in the bottle, but not the big bottle. I like that 7-ounce bottle. But they still don't have them returnable and refillable. And that was the key to the old Coke bottles. It was also interesting that when you finished your Coke, where was this one done? Glasgow, Montana, you know, New Zealand. I had one from Japan one
Oh,
time.
wow.
So,
Yeah, I know my Aunt Lana collects some, but she keeps them full. And so I had to bring her back some from Europe. So,
oh, great.
yeah. I was going to just bring her one, but I was like, well, I'm going to Germany too. I'll bring her one of these because it was a totally different design. I was like, oh, well, there's Coke and there's not a Diet Coke, but they had like a couple different kinds. So she ended up with like 4 Coke bottles that I mailed back. I'm almost a little surprised that they made it through the mail, considering it's a big piece of glass with liquid inside, but they took it.
Yeah, it's funny how that mail business works. I mailed some stuff that was very well packed that just absolutely got destroyed, and then I shipped some stuff that I didn't care whether it got broken or not, and just threw it in the box and hardly put anything in with it, and it went through fine. So,
Well, do you want to talk about the really fun part, the bars?
well, yeah, we can do that. Back when I was a kid, we had 3 bars in town. There was the Northern, the Rainbow, and the Palace Inn.
Oh, the Palace was still open.
Oh yeah, yeah. Johnny Portine, you know, still had it, and and then Albert Seeley. But yeah, I remember the Palace Inn for years. Jack Rosenwald and Stella had the Rainbow, and Joe Stuber, he had the Northern. Joe got the Northern from Morris Denham in like 1951 or 52, somewhere around in there, and had it for years. And so I think it went up into about 72 or so before he sold it. So, but I used to go running with, here I was, a little kid, I'd run around with the grown-up guys. Jack Rosenwald would take me traveling with him. Frank Locke would take me with him. John McColly used to come get me and take me fishing. John had the greatest boat in the world. It was like a cabin cruiser, but it was a homemade job. It was a big old heavy hull, and then the top on it was from an old Kaiser car, and it had the crank windows in it and everything. It was like, that had to be the heaviest boat that ever, you know, came down the pike, because they built those cars like tanks. And so here was half a car mounted on this boat, you know. So,
Wonder where he came up with that idea.
I don't know. And I'm not even sure he built it. You know, he might have bought it, but it was obviously a homemade job. But, yeah, we could go through. If, you know, the interesting thing, if people wonder, you know, about Hinsdale and want to do a little research on it, what they want to do is they want to find somebody who has the early 50s annuals. Because you can go through there and just be amazed at the ads and the number of businesses that are no longer in existence. Some in Hinsdale, some in Glasgow or wherever. But yeah, it's the number of businesses that aren't in existence in Valley County anymore is pretty amazing. Just to the north of the bank used to be a Kaiser Fraser dealership. And then years later, just part of the building got left and a barber shop was in there for years. And then years after that, Doc Cockrells' office got converted into a barber shop and Roy Ellsworth worked there for years. So yeah, we've had all kinds of businesses in this town. Back in the 20s and 30s, we had four lumber yards here.
Wow.
But it's the kind of situation that with the improvement of things, such as automobiles, also comes the improvement of roads, which means people can travel faster and farther in the same amount of time that used to take them to get someplace.
Yeah. And there's just not as many people around anymore. You
And
start
that's-
looking at the old homestead maps, and there was someone every half mile.
Yeah.
You get into that North Country, and it's 10, 20 miles to your neighbor.
Well, I live up there on the South Bench, and you know, when I give directions to people, I say, go up there and you hang a left, and I says, I'm the first house on your left. As a matter of fact, I'm the only house on your left. So if you pass a house on the left, and you keep going, you've passed me.
And that's not a very good area to go past what you're looking for, because who knows where you'll end up.
Well, you'll end up in Vandalia.
Yeah.
Which is an interesting thing. From my front yard to Vandalia Railroad Crossing is 6.5 miles. So back when I was a kid, there was a grocery store in Vandalia. So if I lived out on the hill now and there was a grocery store there, that would be real handy. As it is, from my front yard to city limits of Glasgow going the back way is 22 miles. But if the roads are wet, you don't want to go that way. So then it's 37 miles to go to Glasgow that way, or 21 to go to Saco. So,
How many grocery stores were there?
well, there was 3. There's Gasper's, which was right next door, a lot away from the Rainbow that we're sitting in. And then over in the Masonic Hall was Claypool's. Years before that, before it was Claypool's, it was Buttry's. And I don't remember who ended up, but I had 2 road signs advertising Buttry's in Hinsdale. One said 7 miles or something.
It must have been from your house.
So, and then there was one just to the south of the Rainbow here. And it was a co-op store. It was, I think, partly owned by the Farmers Union. But the main function of that business was it had freezer lockers. Not everybody had a home freezer at the time. So you'd get a deer or buy a cow or, you know, have it butchered. You didn't have the facilities at home. So you'd go down and rent a storage locker. And I think they gave you a padlock or something to put on it, or you brought your own.
Can you imagine that, Trey? Hey, Trey, go get some hamburger from the neighbors.
Yeah,
Here's the key.
that's pretty much it, so.